Hey everybody, Nga here, notable Phoenix native, resident of the testament to man's arrogance, and I have quite a bit of an obsession with this metropolitan area and this state of mine. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the streets. Every street has a name, and every name has an origin. Some are pretty boring, but some are super interesting. When it comes to the streets of the Phoenix area, there are some wacky names that I can examine. In what will likely be a 2 or 3 part series, I'm going to explain the story behind every major east-west road in the Phoenix metro area. Now, why just the east-west ones? Well, maybe I will get to the north-south ones in the future, but a lot of those streets that go north to south, they're kind of boring. Hi, Daryl. Hi. Hello. A lot of the streets that go north to south are kind of boring. There are enough exceptions that I could totally make at least one video about them, but most of the north-south roads in the Phoenix area are numbered. There's a central avenue at the core of downtown Phoenix, and then every major road to the east of Central is labeled street, as in 1st Street, 2nd Street, 99th Street, all the way up to 231st Street. To the west of Central, the north-south roads are the avenues, from 1st Avenue to 27th Avenue, all the way to, and I'm not kidding, 579th Avenue. That is a total of 811 total blocks, covering a distance wide enough that you could fit the entirety of Kaliningrad, or most of North Macedonia, or 4 Luxembourgs, between the furthest west avenue and the furthest east street. And that's not even counting the southeastern stretches of the metro area that go down beyond the end of the numbered streets. The east-west streets can carry the same name across much of these vast distances. Sometimes they change names, though. For example, Bell Road becomes Sun Valley Parkway, and then later, as it bends around, turns to Palo Verde Road in the far west, and it turns to Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in the east. I'm going to do my best to go over each of these names that carry over, so no section of the valley gets left out, but I'm going to consider the primary name to be the one that goes through the most polities. So, where to begin? The furthest north? The furthest south? What could possibly be the most basic line that I could use as a base to begin this list with?
How do you say that, Morgan?
That street?
Yeah.
Vaseline.
Vaseline.
Vaseline with a B.
Baseline Road. Baseline Road is called Baseline because it was purposefully set to be the central latitudinal meridian upon which the original grid for not only the Phoenix area, but actually the entirety of Arizona was based upon. The initial point for the first survey of the new border between the United States and Mexico in 1851 after the Mexican-American War began on a small butte at the confluence of the Salt and Gila rivers, now called Monument Hill. Then the Gadsden Purchase happened, and this location was no longer the US-Mexico border, but it was still a good central latitudinal marker for making grids of the New Mexico territory. Less than 10 years later, the Civil War broke out, and the Confederates declared the southern half of the whole New Mexico territory to be the Confederate Arizona Territory. In 1863, Abraham Lincoln did a little trolling and split the New Mexico Territory in half the other way in celebration of reclaiming much of the area for the Union, and called the western half Arizona and the eastern half New Mexico. In 1865, upon the conclusion of the war, a new survey mission began for this new official territory of Arizona. The surveyors decided, hey, this border marker here, right at the confluence, is at a pretty cool spot. Let's use it as our baseline for the new survey. And so it was. Also that same time that the government gave Las Vegas to Nevada to punish Arizona for supporting the Confederacy, even though it was really just like the bottom half of Arizona. the part without Las Vegas was the part that supported the Confederacy, but they still did it. Hashtag annex Las Vegas. Anyway, the Phoenix area expanded. The road along the baseline became Baseline Road, and every major road following the grid is based on this baseline. Also, the north-south meridian, known as the Gila and Salt River Meridian, goes along Avondale Road, which is also 115th Avenue. I actually went there just to get a little look at where it all began. There it is. Whew. This is it, the baseline marker, the original baseline meridian of the entire state of Arizona. See where this line is pointing? Look directly out that way. That's Baseline Road, all the way into the distance. This is a pretty cool spot. That's the Gila River right there. And then it becomes a salt river by the time it's over there. And then this down here, I believe, is an ancient Hohokam Canal. Look how it goes in like a straight line over there. And there's the Estrella Mountains, and there's the Phoenix Raceway. And here's the National Register of Historic Places marker. Look at that. It was a really hot day. It was like 107 degrees out. Not a smart idea, but I did it. I did it because I wanted to see it in person because I knew I was making this. Baseline Road today is one of the most well-known roads in the valley. It gets cut off multiple times, but it can be spotted as far west as 547th Avenue in Tonopah and as far east as Goldfield Road in Apache Junction. Anyway, from here, I'm going to start by going to the north because it has a more clear endpoint. Then, presumably in the next video or next two videos, I'm going to loop back down to baseline and go south from there, where things get very murky as to what constitutes the Phoenix Metro and what's part of the Tucson metrosphere. Though, at the rate of development, it'll probably all be one and the same in a few years. The city of Phoenix is already using the term megalopolis in its merch. Help us all. Anyway, one arterial road north of Baseline is exactly 1 mile north of it. This is no coincidence, as this was part of the Grand Meridian Plan for the Phoenix area. In flat areas, uninterrupted by geography, each meridian is spaced 1 mile apart, with smaller half-mile meridians between them. Many of these half-mile roads have very interesting backstories too, but for the sake of my sanity, I'm going to be sticking to the mile meridian roads, with some deviation at the far north of the city when the blocks become more vague. Southern Avenue. Southern Avenue got its name because it marked the southern boundary line of the original borders of the city of Phoenix when it was originally established. Pretty simple. Broadway Road. Okay, this one blew my mind. You know how nearly every city in the US has a road called Broadway, and it's usually named that because it's a broad way in the center of the city where lots of people and traffic happen? Well, that's not the story of our Broadway. No, you'll notice on the map that Broadway Road doesn't cross to the center of Phoenix, or Tempe, or Mesa, though for Mesa it kind of comes close. But that's not a coincidence. That's because the Phoenix area's Broadway Road is not named for it being a central thoroughfare that needed to be extra wide. It's named after a man named Broadway. A man named Noah M. Broadway. He was the sheriff of Maricopa County from 1885 to 1886. The first instances of his name appearing as the namesake to a road previously referred to as the Road to Tempe was right after he left office. So I guess people liked him. That's crazy though. It's a guy named Broadway. University Drive / Lower Buckeye Road. University Drive is named after Arizona State University as the road crosses through the center of campus. It appears that it had this name long before ASU got its modern name back in 1958. Back then it was called the Territorial Normal School, but the road along this meridian was already called University. Very bold. To the west, this road on this meridian is called the Lower Buckeye Road because it's 1 block south of Buckeye Road, which brings us to Buckeye Road, which is named after the town of Buckeye. or city of Buckeye at this point. Ironically, Buckeye Road technically is not in Buckeye. It's the same road, but it bends to the southwest as you head west to Buckeye as State Route 85. Along the meridian of Buckeye Road, it actually becomes Yuma Road past a canal. The name Buckeye itself is an Ohio reference. Certified Ohio reference detected. Most of the original settlers of this area were from Ohio, so they expressed their Ohio pride by naming their town after the Buckeye State. So along that axis, Yuma Road thus is named after the city of Yuma, which is named after the Spanish interpretation of other tribes' exonyms for the Quechua people. Van Buren Street / McKellips Road. Van Buren Street is named for President Martin Van Buren. In the original town site of Phoenix, the east-west streets are named after presidents, starting with Washington and going on from there. The naming convention hopped north to south like an onion, too. Like Adams Street is directly north of Washington, but then Jefferson is directly south of Washington. So the effect ended up being that Van Buren Street was 3 streets north of Washington. And for whatever reason, Van Buren Street ended up becoming a major road for the whole valley, while most of the other early president roads only persist in the historic core of downtown Phoenix. To the east, the road gets interrupted by the Phoenix Zoo, and then it comes back along the same meridian as McKellips Road. McKellips is named after James McKellips, an early rancher in the Phoenix area. He was apparently one of the primary entrepreneurs behind revamping the ancient Hohokam irrigation canals that passed through modern Scottsdale and Phoenix, an endeavor that had begun with Mormons in Mesa decades prior. McDowell Road is named after General Irvin McDowell of Civil War fame. He was a Union general who never personally set foot in Arizona, but was the commander of the Army's Department of California around that time that a fort was named in his honor, Fort McDowell. This fort was located several miles northeast of the meridian where McDowell Road is today. It's likely that the fort, the road, and the McDowell Mountain Range were all named after him at the same time, given that relative to the locations of Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Mesa at the time, looking east from Phoenix, northeast from Scottsdale, and north of Mesa all kind of pointed you in like a McDowell-y direction. Thomas Road is named after William E. Thomas, a guy who was very important in the later days of Arizona's territorial period. He was at the forefront of organizing the administration of Arizona as it prepared for statehood, and served as the territorial deputy county recorder for Maricopa County. Indian School Road is, as the name unfortunately suggests, named after one of the so-called Indian boarding schools that the U.S. government operated on reservations throughout the country. This specific one was located at the meridian where Indian School Road is located today, at the intersection with Central Avenue. This was one of the longest running Indian schools in the United States, and it only closed in 1990. If you don't know what kind of stuff went down at these Indian schools, look it up. It was not good. There's a reason there's a memorial at the site today. Camelback Road is named after Camelback Mountain, which it heads right up to as you go east before it bends south to avoid it and matches with the meridian of a more minor road, Campbell Avenue, as it reaches the 101. Chaparral Road takes the main Camelback meridian in that section of Scottsdale. Camelback Mountain is called that because people think the mountain looks like a camel's humps. Bethany Home Road and McDonald Road. Bethany Home was named after the Bethany Home, a tuberculosis colony established in 1908 along this meridian at 16th Street. There were a lot of tuberculosis colonies in Arizona in the late 1800s and early 1900s, since people thought the hot, dry air would heal people of their tuberculosis. Later, the nearby Bethany Home for the Aged was founded in 1914, which seems to still exist today under the name Bethany Homes right along the 17. Over to the east, it turns to McDonald Road. McDonald is named after Duncan McDonald, an early rancher who moved to Arizona in the 1870s and worked on some of the original canal renovations in the area around his ranch. Glendale Avenue / Lincoln Road. Glendale Avenue is named after the city of Glendale. Glendale itself was named by the guy who led the construction of the Arizona Canal in the 1880s. He went into severe debt because he agreed to be paid in land instead of actual money. That land turned into Glendale, and it looks like we came up with the name pretty casually. Glendale comes from Glen, which is a Scottish Gaelic word meaning a narrow valley, and Dale, which comes from the Old English word for valley. So Glendale means narrow valley valley. Very creative. Another addition to the Arizona Redundancy Collection, along with Table Mesa and Picacho Peak. Then there's Lincoln Road, which is not named after Abraham Lincoln. It is named after an entrepreneur named John C. Lincoln, who moved to Arizona in 1931 because his wife had tuberculosis. He founded a place called Desert Mission in Sunny Slope, a tuberculosis resort which eventually became a normal hospital, the John C. Lincoln Hospital at Dunlap and 2nd Street. He also created the Camelback Inn in Paradise Valley. Northern Avenue gets its name the same way that Southern Avenue does. Southern was the original southern border of Phoenix, and Northern Avenue was the original northern border of Phoenix. Dunlap Avenue / Olive Avenue / Cave Creek Road / White Tank Mountain Road. Whew! Dunlap is named after John T. Dunlap, mayor of Phoenix from 1904 to 1905. He was also a major early real estate developer. It then turns into Cave Creek Road, which shoots off to the northeast toward the town of Cave Creek. On the other side of the mountains, the road along this meridian is Doubletree Ranch Road. Boringly, it appears that Doubletree Ranch isn't named after anything historical. It's just a name some corpos thought would be an elegant and classy place for their planned golf community. Then, to the west, after 43rd Avenue, Dunlap changes its name to Olive Avenue. Presumably, this is due to olive farms that were in that area. Finally, all the way to the west, Olive Avenue becomes White Tank Mountain Road at the trailhead to the White Tank Mountains. Peoria Avenue / Shea Boulevard. Peoria Avenue is named after the city of Peoria, which is named after Peoria, Illinois, which is named after the Miami, Illinois language word for prairie fire. Hopefully that name doesn't become prophetic. Then, after the road gets interrupted by one of the Phoenix Mountains heading east, it turns into Shea Boulevard, the most important arterial road of my childhood. Shea Boulevard was named after James Shea, a prominent farmer in Arizona's early statehood. He gained fame for being one of the leaders of the Paradise Verde Irrigation District beginning in 1916, which was responsible for the creation of the Horseshoe Dam on the Verde River. Cactus Road, in another twist to me, is not named after the fact that we're in a place with lots of cacti. There was actually a short-lived town called Cactus, centered on the intersection of Cactus Road and Cave Creek Road. It had a post office and everything. It was a real town. Nowadays, at that location, we're graced with an EOS Fitness and Jiffy Lube. It's actually at that intersection where, heading west, the road bends north and turns into the next entry, Thunderbird Road / Waddell Road. Thunderbird Road is named after an airstrip that was a prominent training field during World War II. This airstrip was located at the current location of Arizona Christian University. The proverbial Thunderbird is an indigenous spiritual symbol of a giant bird throughout various cultures of the Southwest. Giant bird, plane, makes sense to me. The one at the site of the Arizona Christian University is actually Thunderbird Field number 1. Number 2 is the current day Scottsdale Airport. Out west, Thunderbird Road turns into Waddell Road. Waddell is named after the unincorporated community of Waddell, which is named after Donald Ware Waddell, one of the main people responsible for funding the creation of Lake Pleasant. What's the name of the dam at Lake Pleasant, you may ask? It is the new Waddell Dam, of course. There was an old Waddell Dam, but it's underwater now. Waddell was originally from Ohio, but lived in New York for a while before settling at a ranch that is located at Waddell Road and the 303, formerly Cotton Lane. Greenway Road is another one that surprised me. I figured it was called that because there are a lot of particularly green neighborhoods along it, which is something that stands out amongst the Sonoran Desert around it. But nope. John Greenway. a guy named John Greenway. He was a Rough Rider with Teddy Roosevelt in the Spanish-American War and later fought in World War I too. In the meantime, he was a prominent figure in the development of Bisbee and Clifton into some extremely profitable mines. In the east, it bends to the north around the mountains and becomes Greenway Parkway, and the road on its meridian briefly becomes Coral Gables Drive. Coral Gables being named after a famous neighborhood development in Florida. Weird. Bell Road / Sun Valley Parkway / Palo Verde Road / Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard. This one has a lot of names, but the main name it passes through the city is definitely Bell Road. The most mileage, I'd say. This is named after a guy named Harvey Bell, another rancher who worked with Shea on the Paradise Verde Irrigation District. There's also a geographic feature, the Bell Pass, named after Bell, which sits just barely to the north of the Bell Road meridian in the McDowell Mountains between McDowell Peak and Thompson Peak. Before the McDowells, Bell bends to the southeast and is renamed Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard, after the famous architect whose school, Taliesin West, is on that road. Technically, also, right at the very end, it's renamed again to 117th Way for about half a mile before it finally ends. All the way to the west, it's renamed Sun Valley Parkway, presumably after the Valley of the Sun, that comprises the entire Phoenix metro area. Sun Valley Parkway curves around the entire White Tanks mountain range before heading south, reaching the 10, and then changing names again to Palo Verde Road around the 275th Avenue mark. Palo Verde Road is presumably named after the farming community of Palo Verde. Palo Verde is a genus of trees that grow here, the ones with green sticks, thus the name. Union Hills Drive is named after the Union Mine in Crown King. I don't exactly know why an east-west meridian road got the name of a mine so far north of it, but that's supposedly it. Beardsley Road gets its name from the former town of Beardsley that is today located in Sun City. The town of Beardsley was named after William H. Beardsley, a guy from Ohio. With his brother George, they led the endeavor of creating the irrigation canals in the West Valley beginning in 1892. This canal project was complicated and ended up getting delayed until his son and a man named Carl Pleasant joined him in building a dam on the Agua Fria River. Once the dam was built, the new canal system was called the Beardsley Canal, and the lake was called Lake Pleasant. Yup, Lake Pleasant didn't get its name because it is a particularly pleasant lake. It got its name because of a guy named Pleasant. Anyway, the Beardsley Canal is now called the Maricopa Water District, and much of Beardsley Road is just the on-ramp and service road to the northern stretch of the 101. Way out west in Sun City Festival, the road briefly reappears on that meridian as Beardsley Parkway, just to be a little edgy, I guess. Deer Valley Road is named after the Deer Valley Airport, another runway created during World War II, which is located on the north side of the road from 19th Avenue to 7th Street. The airport is named after the area between the Hedgepeth Hills, or Hedgepeth, something like that, Hedgepeth Hills, and the seemingly unnamed range in the Sonoran Preserve that contains the Dixie Summit and Falcon Mountain. This area was called Deer Valley because of all the deer that lived in the area before development, and it had that name a long time before the airport was built. Pinnacle Peak Road is named after Pinnacle Peak, the northernmost mountain in the McDowell Mountain Range. Ironically, Pinnacle Peak Road is 2 major blocks south of the actual Pinnacle Peak. The real peak is along the Jomax Meridian, which we'll get to soon. Assumedly, Pinnacle Peak Road was made when that was the northernmost major meridian in the Phoenix area, and they just hadn't developed any plans to expand any further north past the actual Pinnacle Peak. This is also another redundant name, since Pinnacle just means peak, so we have at least 2 peaks in Arizona. Happy Valley Road gets its name from an area called Happy Valley. There's a community there called Happy Valley Ranch, but I'm not sure if that predates the road or not. Looks like Happy Valley is generally considered the area between the McDowell Mountains, Anthem, and Seven Springs. Jomax Road is a fun one. It's a portmanteau of Josephine and Maxine Durham, two members of the Durham family that had ranches in the area. Josephine, Maxine, Joe, and Max, Jomax. Boom, got 'em. Dynamite Boulevard / Rio Verde Drive / Patton Road. Dynamite is seemingly just named after dynamite because it evokes imagery of mining, I guess. To the east, it turns into Rio Verde Drive as it approaches the retirement community of Rio Verde. Rio Verde is just Spanish for the Verde River, which is also right next to both the end of the road and the retirement community. Then, way out in the far west, at that meridian, it becomes home to Patton Road, which extends all the way to the Toyota Proving Ground at around 331st Avenue. I can't find anything about this one. Got nothing. Maybe it's after General Patton? If anyone knows, tell me in the comments. Dixilita Drive is also a bit more of a mysterious one as well. Its meridian passes almost perfectly through the Dixie Summit in the Sonoran Preserve, and lots of things are named Dixie around here. I can't prove this, but I swear I've seen at the Fountain Hills River of Time Museum that the Dixie Mine around Fountain Hills got its name from being founded by Southerners from the former Confederate states. If that's the case, it's probably the same case for other things in the area named Dixie, but I'm not really sure. If you know the answer, tell me, because I'm very curious. Lone Mountain Road. This is another slightly vague one. There appear to be two Lone Mountains, ironically, one of which is officially called Lone Mountain, about 6 miles northeast of the Lone Mountain Meridian up in Cave Creek. Then there's another very lonely little mountain located just to the south of the Lone Mountain Road, near where it ends at Pima Road. And there's an HOA next to it called Lone Mountain Vista. But then again, there's also a church on Scottsdale Road called Black Mountain Church of Christ. So maybe it's a coincidence and that's actually Black Mountain? Or just an unnamed volcanic hill. I don't know. The Carefree Highway. As of 2026, this is the northernmost truly major meridian arterial road, though not the last entry on this list. It's named after the town of Carefree, which got its name because the real estate developers who bought the land and began the construction wanted to create a really relaxed town atmosphere, a carefree one per se. The road, as it goes west, becomes Route 74, which is also named the Morristown New River Highway. It has that name because it passes through the town of Morristown, which is named after Morristown, New Jersey, because the original settlers that settled in that town were from that town in New Jersey. And also New River, all the way back east where the road is still called Carefree. Now, why is that? Now, New River existed as a community long before Carefree did. It was founded by Lord Darrell Dupa, the British guy who was also instrumental in founding Phoenix itself, along with Confederate veteran Jack Swilling. Cloud Road / Stagecoach Pass / Black Mountain Road. I can't find anything on the origin of Cloud Road either. At its eastern end, it turns into Stagecoach Pass in Cave Creek and far, far north Scottsdale. The Stagecoach Pass name comes from the fact that the spot was part of an important stagecoach route before cars. But then, far west, at a place along the 60 called Circle City north of Whitman, the road comes back as Black Mountain Road, where it goes along that meridian for a few miles before bending northwest and ending at the Red Cliff at the Hassayampa River, near 271st Avenue. Even further west, it comes back as Black Mountain Road again for a couple blocks, before turning back into Cloud Road at 307th Avenue. It then continues as Cloud until it abruptly ends at 347th Avenue, just a couple blocks shy of reaching the Vulture Mine, making it the northwesternmost corner of the Phoenix Metro grid. But we're not done yet. Oh yeah, I have no idea which Black Mountain Road the road is referring to. Along this massive stretch of land, there are at least 3 Black Mountains that are near the road. Like, it could be related to the Black Mountain in Cave Creek, the mountain that gives Stagecoach Pass its name. That would actually be pretty funny. This road changed its name to match a mountain 1 metric Luxembourg away. Like, that would be very funny. If so, Black Mountain got its name because it's volcanic and it looks black. Joy Ranch Road goes from Anthem and Cave Creek in the east all the way to 315th Avenue, though it's broken up several times by huge stretches of empty desert. The name? Another name, Sam Joy, who was a rancher in the area, who owned the eponymous Joy Ranch in what is today partially Desert Hills, Cave Creek, and some of Scottsdale. The Sam Joy in question may be the son of the author of a book, Sam, the Freeway Isn't a Cattle Trail Anymore, by Sam C. Joy, and I plan on buying this book to find out. Desert Hills Drive is in fact named after the fact that it's in a desert and it is located in an area with lots of hills. Well, really it's named after the community built there over the former Joy Ranch lands, but other than that, yeah, that's it. It very briefly reappears from the ether in the far west for about 3 blocks before it ends at 315th Avenue. Anthem Way. Anthem Way really only counts because of its position on a meridian. It only briefly exists in the town of Anthem that it's named after. The town of Anthem is apparently just an optimistic sounding name chosen by the developers, Del Webb and Pulte Homes. Many people think that it's based on the Ayn Rand book Anthem, and while there's no way to prove that, I wouldn't be entirely surprised. Rockaway Hills Road is found in very sparse areas in the far northeast and far northwest, and is probably the most notable all the way out in Morristown along the 60. There are 2 possible origins for this one. One idea is that it's just a developer's name for an area in Cave Creek where construction began in 1967. The other possibility is that all the way out west, the name is related to Morristown itself. Morristown is named after the town of the same name in New Jersey, and relatively nearby is a town called Rockaway. So, and this is just my conjecture, I think the New Jersey origin story is likely much older and thus is pretty plausible. Circle Mountain Road. Circle Mountain Road is the northernmost major meridian, but it barely counts. It's named after Circle Mountain in New River. It's technically more like half a sphere, but I'll allow it. After that, there's a couple roads that sort of look like they could follow the grid, but there's really no way of telling if they're the kind of latitudinal roads intended to persist in name and latitude after being interrupted. Things just get way too mountainous at this point. So that's it. Circle Mountain Road is the last real meridian following mile by mile major road in the Phoenix area. And with that, in the next video, we're going to hop all the way back down to baseline and start seeing what happens when we head south. If you live south of baseline or are just interested in this for whatever reason, subscribe to be updated when part 2 comes out. Until next time, the Velar Nasal is out.